What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another week and another episode of Unscripted, where we bring you conversations from professionals from all walks of life. We touch on their backstory, their mindset, and how they navigate through adversity and opposition. I'm your host, Akeem Haynes. Look, before we get into this week's episode of the show, do us a huge favor. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Apple iTunes or wherever you can leave podcast reviews and just leave a rating of the show. This small act goes a long way in moving this podcast forward. We wouldn't be here without our listeners. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your continuous support, especially the ones who listen each and every single week. So share this episode, share this podcast with a friend. You never know who may need to hear the message that we have to share this week. I appreciate you and thank you for continuously tuning in and supporting the show. This week, I'm joined by a genuine soul. His schedule right now is currently all over the place. I think he's working on 5 to 6 different books. He's an entrepreneur. He's a consultant for a bunch of startup companies. And I know he's got a busy schedule, but when I reached out to him and asked him to be on the show, his immediate response was anything for you, brother. And I really appreciated that. My guest this week is former chief business officer for Google X, serial entrepreneur, and author of the best-selling book entitled Solve for Happy. My guest this week is Mo Gawdat. I first want to start off by saying I met Mo during the pandemic on being on his show, Slow Mo, which is doing a tremendous amount of great things in the fitness and health space. But when we first got together, there's certain times when you meet people and you can tell that they really live out who they say they are, and they really want to really make an impact in the world in so many different ways. So throughout this episode, you will hear Mo share his story about how he got to where he is today and some gems and lessons that he learned along the way. What's interesting is that he initially started out wanting to be a carpenter. That was his passion, that what he enjoyed doing. But he decided to switch paths and take the engineering route, which he will explain how he came to that decision. But there's a part in this episode where Mo said from 27 to 29, he had everything one could want, but he was extremely miserable inside, which I think led him down this path of seeking happiness and what that truly is. But perhaps the exact moment that brought him to this conclusion was during a time that caused him and his family an insurmountable amount of pain with the loss of his son, Ali. But it was in that same time frame that he wrote his best-selling book, Solve for Happy, Engineering Your Path to Joy. There is so much more I could say about Mo, but honestly, I think it's better if you just listen to the episode and hear it from him. But I guarantee that you will come out of it a little bit more enlightened and in a shifted perspective in so many different ways. Also, he has a new book coming out entitled Scary Smart, which will be released September 30th. Now, if you head over to win@mogawdat.com, let me say it again, win@mogawdat.com, and send him a screenshot of you signing up, then he is offering right now 50 signed copies of the ones who do that. So make sure that you do that if you would like a copy of the book. But let me get out of here so you can hear the great things that he has to share throughout this episode. So enjoy this week's episode with Mo Gawdat. There he is. There he is.
Hello, brother. How are you?
Oh man, it's so good to see you.
It's been so long. How are you? You're as fit as you've always been. Like, what's wrong with me? Oh my God! Why am I the one getting fat? It's like this is not supposed to be the way it is.
Oh, you are looking in good shape and in good spirits. So the last time we spoke, I didn't have the beard going on. You didn't as well.
Now it's a lot. I have tons of white hair. Did you see this? I don't know what's going on. It's like, hey, seriously, can we slow this down? No, it is. It's been. I think when I sometimes leave it longer because I'm now in a bit of a retreat. So I I see very few humans. Like normally, I try to limit myself to 6 to 8 hours a week. A bit of a monk life, if you want. I do get on Zoom calls and do my work, but most of my days I'm just in either reflection or writing. And so when that happens, I let my beard go and I look as scruffy as I can be. Yeah, and life becomes easier that way.
You
It's
know,
good to see you. How have you been?
Mo, people always say, Akeem, how can you be grateful all the time? And honestly, Mo, I'm more grateful than I've ever been right now.
Mm,
And for me, gratitude isn't just a cool saying. It's a way of life. It doesn't mean things are perfect. It doesn't mean things are always going to be well, or the ups and downs. It just means, like, man, as long as I have breath in my body, that is the gift.
mm.
That is the gift. And so,
I'm with you 100%.
well, I actually want to start here because um oh, there's just so much that always comes to my mind. It's just so good to see you. But I want to start here, Mo. You know, in order to understand, I got to give some backstory to our listeners about how you go about your 2020 or New Year's resolution. You don't really say resolution.
I don't.
You say intention.
Absolutely.
And in 2020, you said, I want to be this the year of silence and peace.
Yeah.
Now, we always get what we ask for in some time, Mo.
Exactly. I'm so sorry, world. I'm so sorry. Look at what the Lord provided.
But I want to ask, how did you navigate through the pandemic? Because you being so much of in the corporate field, so much working with Microsoft and Google, and we'll get into that. It requires a certain amount of control, right?
Mm,
Now
mm,
we don't really have. I would say we have scheduled control is what I would call it. But how did you navigate through it, Mo? And that peace and that silence and that space that you were embarking on that year, what was the positive that came from it?
Oh my God! I hope our listeners don't hang up right now. But it was the best year of my life,
Wow.
and that's not my case only. I mean, on my podcast, on which you were one of my favorite guests, I host what I believe are the wisest people on the planet. Right? We just finished 150 episodes,
Wow.
and most of them, actually probably all of them, at least everyone I asked, said it was the best year of my life.
Mm.
Okay, so I can tell you openly, and I think this is a very stoic view of life, that you can see when the pandemic hit and the lockdowns specifically, not just the pandemic, but the lockdowns specifically, that people were polarized into two camps. Okay, some people thought this was the worst thing ever. Okay, and these were the people that constantly clinged on to, I want my way of life. Okay, I want everything that I'm used to be exactly the same. I don't want anything to change. I don't want any threat of that changing in the future. I don't want to be told what to do. And they took that as the seed of their thought for a year and a bit. Okay, and that mushroomed into anything you can imagine, from all conspiracy theories to all loneliness and depression and so on and so forth. And I had I think he was my fourth or fifth guest on the podcast. We started Slow Mo right after the pandemic, and a gentleman called Abdurrahman, and Abdurrahman basically started by saying, well, it seems that this thing is going to stay for a while, so I'm going to come out of it better than I came in. And I said,
Wow.
what do you mean by that? Okay, and he said, well, I can hit my head against the wall for the next couple of months. If the government says it's a lockdown, it's a lockdown. Okay, so I'm gonna call my mom every day. I'm going to work out 6 times a week, and I'm going to go back to playing the piano, and that's the only thing I can do. Now, this was a repetitive theme across everyone that actually enjoyed the lockdown. Now, for me specifically, came with that added bonus of honestly going through that crazy life that I lead, which I do 6 jobs at the same time at any point in time. basically I was given that gift of silence and space, the alibi, if you want, the alibi for the hundreds of people that reach to me every week saying, can we spend time together, for me to say, I am so sorry that we can't. Okay. And sometimes connect on a call or on text or whatever, but narrow down my scope of responsibilities from running and traveling around the world, which I will never do again, to actually sitting with me. Okay, sitting with me is a big topic that most of us struggle, because we're so dependent on the external stimulation, on that dopamine kick that you get all the time from a good time with your friends, or a walk to a museum or a theater or whatever, because you can't produce that calmness and contentment from within you. So you want that excitement from outside you. I will tell you openly, the other thing that most people struggled with is the illusion of control. So other than that constant kick of dopamine, most people struggled with the idea of, I'm in this desperate situation where I don't like what's going on, but I have no control whatsoever on my current situation or my future situation. And I laugh because, I'm a retired control freak, you may know. I am. I'm the worst example you can ever see, because I'm an engineer. I'm a mathematician. Okay, I am a business executive, so I want everything to happen exactly as I expect it to happen. But also, I have traumas, if you want. I used to be, until very recently, I used to code. So if you coded, and you're my age, so if you coded in your early teens and 20s, if you wrote a program, it was normally 30,000 lines of code, and you had to write every single line yourself. And if you made one mistake, I promise you, if you coded something like RPG, which was a language on AS400, it was humiliating, because they would give you a table, okay, and you would have to fill that table with values and numbers and triggers and digits and so on. Endless table of thousands of lines, and if you made one mistake, the machine would run the code and then give you one answer, which is does not compile. That's it. Doesn't tell you what's wrong. So you have to go through 80,000 lines, right? And that teaches you to be an like anal control freak. Like you want everything to be perfect all the time. And then suddenly, with a bit of logic, really, you recognize very quickly that we have zero control. That life is entirely, even the physics of life, the design of life, any physicist in the world will tell you that the reason we exist from the Big Bang until today, the reason Earth formed, the reason, anything exists, is because of a theory that we call entropy. Entropy is basically the tendency for the universe to break down. Okay. And so between entropy, butterfly effects, and black swans, if you know the concept, major events that have, that are very rare in occurrence, but have major impacts, like COVID-19, like the internet, and so on. Between those, you have zero control, Akeem. Yeah. And I think most people don't recognize that, because they're constantly running in the hamster wheel of attempting to attain control. But just lift your hand off any of the things that you're trying to control, and it will fall apart, right? And when you realize that, you suddenly realize that you only have control over two things. There are only two things in life you can control, which are your actions and your attitude. That's it. Okay, that's it. So you get locked down in COVID-19, and you take the attitude of I'm the victim, or I am angry, or the government is trying to depopulate the globe, or whatever those thoughts are. And what is your attitude going to be? You're going to be grumpy, you're going to be disgruntled, you're going to be disapproving, you're going to be constantly stuck in those thoughts. Or you can take the attitude of I'm here, it's a fabulous opportunity for me to do things I normally couldn't do when I'm traveling. So let me do them, okay? And then actions come as a result. So some people start to, narrow down and have tunnel vision on negative news from the media. And I, on the other hand, started my podcast and did many other projects, finished a couple of books, written a couple of books, got to meet wonderful humans like you. And I narrowed down and tunnel visioned on, oh my God, there is so much beauty in life. There is so much wisdom in life. And it's not horrible. Yeah, it's not exactly how I want it to be, but it's not horrible.
You know, Mo, I was looking forward to this conversation because, man, one, we communicate through text. We don't always get to see each other, but your heart always stuck out to me from our first conversation, Mo. And I'm wondering, and I guess I'm assuming the answer, and I kind of already feeling it, but let's go back to the beginning. For being in Egypt, I know from Jamaica, if somebody was cooking in my family, the community is invited. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? The community comes.
Absolutely.
As long as you're in the radius, you have an invitation to the home. And I saw a lot of things when I was young, didn't quite understood it, but I understood what it means to give from a genuine place, Mo. So what were some of the lessons that your parents taught you and just growing up in Egyptian culture in general?
You see, there is a mega difference between the Western view of life, which is all about individuality and freedom, okay, and the rest of the world's view of life, okay? Whether that's Jamaica, Egypt, Latin America, India, I would even say Japan and Korea before they started to really go. I mean, still today, but they're shifting more and more, which is all about community and respect.
Yes.
So these are the two contradictory values that are really, really interesting, and that actually define our world. You look at any Western action that is triggered by a politician or by an individual. It's all about freedom and what's in it for me. Okay. If you look at any Eastern action, Jamaica or Egypt or wherever it is in the world, I'm recording today from the Dominican Republic. It's all about us. Okay. It's all about what's in it for me is if us succeed, okay, I will have a better pie, a bigger pie for me. It's not, I want to take us a bigger pie of the small pie that we have. It's let's all do something together. So if I mean, you know that, there is no social security, there is no health, plans. There are most emerging markets around the world don't have that, but people are less concerned. Because they know for certain that if something happens to me, my kids or my relatives or my brothers or my friends or even just my neighbors who I may have not seen for a week or two, they'll just pop up and help. And you know why they will? They will because they expect that if something happens to them, you will pop up and help. And that's the contract that is signed, that has been spoiled in the West, if you want, with the concept of the middleman. Let's all give our money to, to taxes, or let's all contribute to an insurance company. And then if one of us helps, or if one of us needs help, the insurance company will help them from my money. And there is a middleman. Okay. Yeah. And the system works, but it loses, I would say, the most gorgeous part of life, which is the connection you and I felt the minute we met.
Yes.
Right. The minute, I mean, you texted me to say, hey, would you want to be on my podcast? And what did I answer? I said, anything for you, brother. Right?
Yes.
and it's really in my mind, it's like, it's so clear. I love this human being. I saw the purity of you. I know what you stand for. Okay. And I know that if I asked you for something in the future, you'll be there for me.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that, I think, is the beauty of the Eastern traditions, okay? And is what I think we've missed in the West, okay? And I'm surprised because we're not obliged to miss it in the West, okay? I mean, both you and I live in the West, but we can still make that choice of connecting around our oneness, if you want, our unity as one, going through the world whenever we need to. I mean, think about it. My actual brothers, Amr and Khalid, when we like you and I, we text all the time, or some of the time, but we don't talk all the time. But I know for a fact that if I needed anything or they needed anything, we're brothers. and you can choose to be that with a friend or two in your life, with a few people that you feel close to in your community. And if you make that choice, I had a guest on my podcast that wrote a book called Likeable, not Likeable. I was Backable, an amazing gentleman that basically said he went and did a survey of happiness around the world. And the number one reason for people in Bhutan, which is supposed to be like the capital of happiness, if you want, and they measure gross happiness product instead of GDP, he said the one indication that people were happy is that they had around them a circle of friends or close people that they knew in their heart they could count on. And I said, and what's the one indication that is true for someone? And he said that they are there as part of the circle of close friends of others. Okay. All you need to do is to sign the pact with a few people and say, I love you, brother. I'm always there for you. Or I love you, sister. I'm always there for you. Be there for me. And that's it. And that closeness, that's what life is all about. That's what we miss in the West.
Well, why do you think have you ever heard the saying when people say, we got to give people their roses when they're alive, right? Or we have to give them that appreciation, or they get that appreciation when they're gone. Mo, why do you think that is? Sharing how we feel is such a hard thing to do, right? Because sometimes if you and if you're on my mind, and I've done it a bunch of times, I'm just like, oh man, when I'm reflecting on something that you may have said or a conversation, I just shoot you a message and, you'll get to it. I'll message my friends and I'll be like, hey, bro, I love you. Or I'll talk to my female friends and I'll be like, hey, I love you. But for me, it's through the losses that has made me appreciate, the power of, if someone can respond to your message, that is a gift. But why do you think there's this emotional detachment to being vulnerable?
Oh, it's a very, very deep question. I mean, it's layers deep, really. I actually just recently wrote about it. I'm writing with a friend a book. It's called Unstressed. And I was basically talking about that lack of human connection and the impact it has on stress. And I think it all goes back to something I call currency of success. Okay, so I give an extreme example, but if you take a young girl, 3 years old, or an infant, and you raise her in Saudi Arabia, she would grow up believing that to fit in within the society, you need to dress conservatively. Saudi is now a lot more open, so it's not restrictive, but you can still see that most women are conservatively dressed. Even though they remove the headscarf and so on, they're still conservatively dressed. They don't go out in hot shorts in shopping malls, right? If you take that same girl and raise her in Rio de Janeiro, regardless of her genetics, okay, she will believe that a G-string on the beach is the way to fit in, okay? Is one right and the other wrong? Not at all, okay? It's what society tells us is the way to fit in. And our Western society has told us a lie, okay? A lie that stems from the days of the Industrial Revolution. And the lie is very straightforward. You cannot bring your emotions to the serious places, and the serious places are where you succeed. Okay, you can't bring your emotions to school. You can't bring your emotions to work. You need to be solid. You can't appear to be weak. You cannot be vulnerable. Okay, and so that basically is what I normally call the safety model. The safety model of our brains is to say, what's the easiest way for me to not bring my emotions to work? It's the easiest way is to hide my emotions in general. Even hide them from my own self. Probably it's even easier if I don't feel them or acknowledge them. Okay, so the easiest way for me to not break down in front of one of my friends is to not feel the need to break down at all. So I sort of suppress my emotions in a way that eventually turns out to be what? It explodes, but normally it explodes in the bathrooms of the workplace, or when you go back home, or when you're in the car driving back home. Okay. Now, the truth, Akeem, is really what sets you free, huh? Even though it might piss you off. But the truth is, we're all emotional beings. As a matter of fact,
Yep.
the only time you've ever felt alive is when you were emotional. You before you run a race. Yeah, you ran your races like a bullet. But in reality, you're at the end of the day, you must have been stressed before. You must have felt, right? You know,
nerves, skin,
nerves
blues.
and butterflies. You're human. Now, I interviewed on Slow Mo. I interviewed a wonderful gentleman who is the grandson of Gandhi. His name's Aaron Gandhi. And, yeah, and Aaron wrote a book called The Gift of Anger. Okay, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how can anger be a gift? And he basically said, Mo, anger is an energy like any other energy. Okay, you can use it to punch someone in the face, or you can use it to stand up and be counted. Okay, or you can use it to put your head down and change something. Okay,
Yes.
love, which is our probably most human emotion, like the most pure emotion we can feel as humans, is the same. It's just energy. You can use your love to completely get connected to another being, okay? Hopefully at a soul level, or you can use it to be obsessive and jealous and possessive, and you can just destroy that person's life. Both are triggered by love. So it's not the emotion that is the issue. It is the action that you take triggered by the emotion that is the issue. If you can actually direct your emotion in the right direction, the energy of your emotion, you're doing amazing. Now, that I think is where we miss that. This is what we miss in the West. Okay, in the West, we believe that we should hide our emotions. Okay, because we're not supposed to be seen as emotional beings. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Huh?
Yeah.
No, what you want is you want to do 3 steps. One is you want to acknowledge your emotions to your own self, self. I'm not saying you have to show them to others, but maybe show them to the few that you actually believe will support you when you're emotional. As a beginning, I would say step 2 is to celebrate, embrace those emotions. It's like, oh my God, I feel anxious. All right, that's great. It's amazing. Oh, I feel anxious. I feel human. I feel alive. Doesn't matter. It's anxious can be, oh, right. I can now acknowledge this to myself, so I can start doing something about it. If I don't acknowledge it to myself, your life is gonna pass by with that emotion trapped inside. Sometimes for 67 years. I had I teach happiness. Before COVID, I used to teach classes of thousands, and I had one wonderful woman, small, come to me after one class and say, what are you talking about? How can you even talk about this thing that's called happiness? You have no idea what I've been through. You have no idea what I've experienced. And she paused for a second and she said, when I was 17, okay? She was 74 or 76 at the time, okay? And I hugged her and I said, so you kept that inside for all those years, 67 years or 57 years, okay? And I said, I hugged her and I said, did it work?
Whoa.
Did it work? And she broke down crying in my arms. Around the 57 years that have gone by, holding on to that thought. One thought of what happened to her when she was 17 and never being able to share that with others. Isn't that what we're all going through?
Wow. Mo, I was and I actually want to parlay into this happiness section, but I got to give you a little backstory before I ask my next question. I unfortunately, in my life, I lost people dear to me very early. And one of those people was my grandfather. His name was Etel Samuels, but people used to call him Farmer Brown, right? He used to be an actual farmer, but he got the name from how he treated everybody that he came in contact with. The farmer takes care of the cows, the goats, the sheep, and all of that, but he was like that with the community. And I remember the last time that I saw him, he said, "Hey, you're going to come back and see me, right?" I said, "Absolutely, of course." And he said, and I said, "I promise that I will come back and see you." And I wasn't able to keep that promise, Mo. And as a 13-year-old kid, it really bothered me. It really hurt me to know that I couldn't fulfill that promise. And he only asked me for one thing. And it kind of ate at me. And it ended up, I ended up making a shirt about it. And I played with that shirt every single football game. And when I was tired, I would just tap my chest and it would remember and remind me I'm doing something bigger than myself. Mo, I believe pain can be a great teacher. Through pain, we can find purpose. Through pain, we can find enlightenment if we know how to shift our perspective. I want to talk about Ali because you said countlessly over and over again, he's your teacher, your guru, your mentor, and so many other things, Mo. What were some of the memories and things that you took from him? Because he sounded like an outstanding young man.
Yeah. He was, I think if you want to sum it up, he was the best, the biggest gift I've ever been given, honestly.
Wow.
And it's just, of course it takes a shift of perspective because Ali, as my son, I started to notice his Zen monkness, if you want, at a very young age. He was very, very unusual. I mean, some of us are like that. I don't know how we become like that, but he was always, always calm, always peaceful. He spoke very little.
Really?
When he spoke, he was joking all the time, like a child. Okay, even in his last, days, he would just joke all the time, or speak enormous wisdom in 4 words. Okay, so you would go to Ali, and you would ask him something. I mean, by age 16, I honestly and openly, publicly told my friends that he's my mentor. When I become older, I want to become like Ali. Right?
It's beautiful.
And he was unbelievably wise. But he would sit there and look at me. At the time I was chief business officer of Google X. Like everyone thinks of me as a semi-god of some sort, right? And I would go sit next to this young man and ask him a question, and he would sit there and entertain me, and ask me about how I feel and what makes me think this way, and just entertain me. Literally, I knew the minute I sat next to him that he knew the answer. Okay, but he would just give me the feeling that I said what I needed to say before he bestows his wisdom on me of some sort, and then he would answer in 4 words. Like literally, "Papa, have you considered this?" Something of that kind, 4 to 8 words, and it would blow you away every time. Not the effort-based doing that we do in the modern world, but really laying back and looking at the big picture. Okay, and this young man, I don't know if all of our listeners know, but he was 21 and a half when he had a belly ache, and we took him to the hospital. He was diagnosed with an appendix inflammation, and then it's supposed to be the simplest surgery known to humankind, but the surgeon did 5 mistakes in a row, and all of them were preventable, and all of them were fixable, actually. But somehow 4 hours later, my son left our world, and it's not, I don't know. I don't want to say it's the hardest thing a human can ever feel, because I haven't felt everything a human can ever feel. But I can tell you that it's still. This is 7 years ago, and as you can see, it's still emotional today, and it feels like it has a physical signature in my body. So when I think of Ali, I feel that the right hand side of my heart, the bottom right hand side of my heart, is missing. Okay, and it's exactly how it feels. I can pinpoint exactly where the pain is, and that, I don't know how to say that, but that was the biggest gift I was ever given. It is unlike you. It's not. Of course, I don't mean that you see it this way, but I didn't have a minute of guilt, even though I drove him to that hospital. Okay. I sat down and I started to write. And I started to write everything he told me, everything he taught me. In a manic way, I was trying to document what my teacher told me. Okay. And I was writing about happiness. Okay, which I think was really what saved me. And basically what I was attempting to do was, instead of hitting my head against the wall for the following 27 years, I was basically saying, maybe if I could share what he taught me with the world, then his essence would live on. Okay, his essence through 6 degrees of separation, 70 years later, a tiny bit of his wisdom will be with everyone. And that's exactly what happened. And I say it's the biggest gift ever. I was on stage right before the pandemic, speaking in an event called Wisdom in Business in Amsterdam. And Martin, the host, and who was interviewing me at the time on stage, so is a very good friend. And I burst crying on stage because there must have been 1,000 people in the audience or something. And I've been there the whole day and connecting with them. It was in Amsterdam, and I'm really successful in Amsterdam. So I have a lot of people that approach me and tell me how much the book made a difference to their life. And I just was overwhelmed with the love I felt from all of those people. And it hit me. I don't know exactly what the question he asked was, but he asked a question that basically triggered in my mind that life took away the love of Ali and replaced it with the love of tens of thousands, if not millions of people. I mean, I am showered with love, Akeem, every day. It's unbelievable, the number of people that send me a kind message on Instagram or whatever. And then you suddenly realize that pain, nothing is good or bad, ever. Nothing is ever good or bad, okay? Nothing is ever right or wrong, if you want to think about it. Huh? Nothing is how it should, nothing, there is no, it should be this way. There's no, it should be this way. There is, it happened, it is. What am I going to do about it right now? What am I going to do about it? That's what pain is there for. It's to either teach you something or to help you change direction. And sometimes, believe it or not, that change is not about you at all, which again, yes. East and West, we forget that. We forget from an individualistic point of view. I feel tremendous pain of missing him for the last 7 years, okay? But that's my pain. That somehow transcended into, reducing the pain of so many people by sharing his wisdom, okay? And I sometimes ask myself, well, if I had, knowing my son, if I had gone to him the day before the operation and said, Ali, would you give your life for millions or tens of millions of people to find more happiness? I promise you he would have said yes.
Wow.
I promise you he would have said, where do I sign? Where do I sign?
Mo, that first, thank you for sharing all that. Such a powerful message. This next question is a two-part question, but I have to go back because I think I was doing a little bit of research and I didn't do too much because I always have a million questions for you anyway. But I was going back and you said from 27 to 29, you had everything. Externally, you had everything, yes. But inside, you were a bit miserable. But to hear how the impact of Ali had in your life and the perspective he gave you, Mo, I think your solve for happy equation kind of happened back then. And I think
Absolutely.
Ali just opened up the canvas for you to
Absolutely.
write. Walk me through a little bit about that time and how Solve for Happy and 1 Billion Happy came to fruition.
Yeah, so I was the happiest person you could ever meet. I probably think until I engaged in the modern world. So
Mm,
I married
mm,
my college sweetheart, who is an angel of a woman. I mean, we're no longer together. We separated 6 years ago, but she's still my best friend and an amazing angel of a woman. We love each other deeply, and we're best friends. And I was given to marry her in Egypt. Uh, you have to have a career and a stable job and so on. So at the time I was a carpenter. That's what I liked. I studied civil engineering. I graduated with honors. I still think until today the highest score in a graduation project ever.
wow.
And I literally just graduated, and before I even graduated I started to get job offers, and I just didn't want any of them. I loved carpentry, and so I opened a
Wow.
tiny little workshop, and I just worked there every day and every night, and until it was time to go and propose to her father. And I knew that a carpenter wasn't going to get the deal done, so I started to work, and I worked at IBM first, then at AT&T, which was then NCR, the computer side of it. And I started my career, and the more I indulged in that hamster wheel, if you want, of success and money and so on, the more fortunate I became, and the more miserable I was. So by age 29, I had everything. I had this amazing woman in my life who gave me two amazing kids. We had a four-bedroom villa with a massive swimming pool, a company car, and another car. And I've always been a good mathematician, so I was trading the stock market at the time of the internet bubble, printing money literally on demand, and had everything, and I was miserable. I was never more unhappy in my life, miserable to the point that I remember vividly my daughter Aya, she must have been 5 at the time, or 6 or something like that. Saturday morning, have my head down on reading an email or doing whatever crap I used to do, and she and yeah and Aya is life itself. Aya is the sunshine itself. Until today, she's just pure pure passion and energy and creativity, and she jumps up and down into the room, like can't hold her emotions. Oh, we're going to this place today, and we're going to play with this, and then we're going to do that. Papa, can we go have lunch in this place? And I'm like, trying to focus on that email. So I raise my head slowly with my grumpy face, and I look at her and I say, can we please be serious for a minute? Okay. She's 5. Damn it. I mean, what was going on inside my head? She's 5. Okay. And I could see with my own eyes my daughter's heartbreak. I literally could not miss it. Okay. She left the room crying. I locked myself up in the bathroom and I cried my head off. I looked in the mirror. I said, I hate this person, and I don't ever want to see this person again. Now, I told you I'm the worst case, huh? Engineer, mathematics. I want facts. So when someone told me meditate, I said, "What's this crap? Tell me why." Okay. When someone said, say Om, I was like, "What Om? Stop this madness. I don't believe in what you're talking about. I still don't believe in Om, but yeah, I mean, in a way, I just refused everything, and I struggled. And then I started to go through that idea of maybe it's the language in which most happiness literature is written that I can't understand. Maybe I speak a different language. And so I started to go on that weird tangent of understanding happiness as an engineer. So I would run what we do in the lab. If you want to reverse engineer a machine and you don't understand how the machine works, you just take readings of the machine's performance, and try to find trend lines that describe the equation of how the machine works. And so strange as this sounds now, I had the conviction of doing that with me as the machine then, saying to myself, I was the happiest person at 26. I'm now the most miserable person in my, in my early 30s. Let's take readings of what was common at the times when I was happy and try to find the trend line. And if I can find that equation, I can regenerate it on demand. Stupid, I know, but that's the way a software engineer thinks.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I remember vividly 92 readings of every moment I could recall in my life where I felt happy. And I started to plot them across charts, trying to find what is the common characteristic of every moment in your life you felt happy. And it's shocking because, of course, I rarely share that, but the first equation I wrote was like 19 parameters with logs and logarithms, and it was really weird. And then when you really, really simplify it, happiness actually follows an equation. I feel happy when my daughter smiles. I feel happy when I have a cup of coffee, a good cup of coffee. I feel happy when I learn something new, or when I meet a good person, a good friend like you, right? What is common across all of those? Is there anything common across all the moments in your life where you felt happy? Yes. Surprisingly, it's much easier than you think. It's not the event that makes you happy. It's a simple comparison between the event actually taking place and your expectation of how life should be. Okay? If you make that comparison and life meets or beats your expectations, you're happy. If you make that comparison and life misses your expectations, you're unhappy, and that's it. It's very simple. Your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events, or your perception of the events of your life, and your expectations of how life should be. So apply that to anything. Apply that to anything. Why are we always happy in nature? We're happy in nature because nobody ever looks at a tree that is crooked and says this thing should be straight. Nobody ever does that. If some climbing plant is hedging over something, we never go and say this is too messy. No, our expectation is that nature is going to be random, and that's its beauty. So we look at nature and we say, oh, the tree is crooked. Look at how beautiful that is. We're no longer confined to a perception. Nobody sits in front of the ocean and says, oh my God, I love the view, but can someone mute the sound? Right? You don't do that. You understand that this ocean has that monotonous sound that is so relaxing, and you learn to love it. Okay? The event is not what makes us unhappy. It's what, it's how we're clinging onto a view of how life should be that makes us unhappy. Again, go back to that whole idea of lockdown. For someone who was expecting to go out dating and partying, and you lock them down, and that's not how life should be. For someone like me who wanted silence and space, hallelujah. It's like, this is it. Right? It's like, thank you, life. This is it, right? And that continues in everything. Gratitude makes you happy because gratitude doesn't only remind you that the equation is correct, that events are equal expectations or better than expectations. It reminds you that events are so much better than expectations that you're grateful for it. Okay? It just reminds you that there are things about your life that you're forgetting that are amazing. Like, for our listeners right now, yeah, your boyfriend might be annoying. Boyfriends are supposed to be annoying, but you have a wonderful device that you can listen to podcasts on, and you have an hour of your time that you can dedicate to this. You have enough safety around you. There is no tiger chasing you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me ranting away. You have a roof on top of your head. Obviously, you're so much more fortunate than 99% of the world. Okay, but you forget that because you're comparing the event to another expectation. Okay, basically, yeah, I have all of that, but my boyfriend's still annoying. Like, that's the one bit I'm going to focus on and say the event is missing my expectations, and like leave them. If you want life to actually remind you, there must be 3.4 billion other men out there. Like, that's, if 50% of the population is men, take out all of the kids and elderly and the short ones that you don't like and the tall ones that you don't like and whatever, there must be a billion other candidates out there. Okay, But our brains miss that fact. It misses the fact that, yeah, life is a life of abundance. We're so fortunate, most of us. Even when things are difficult, we're still very fortunate compared to those who are not.
Mo, from carpenter to opening, your business there and doing what you're passionate about, to embarking in the engineer side of things, chief business officer, Google X, everything that you have ever wanted, the loss of your son, to writing this book. Obviously, throughout that situation and that season, our emotions are always going and flowing, and happiness, our definition of happiness, can change. At this stage in your life, Mo, what does happiness look like to you? Because for the listeners, like, I think we focus too much on external things to fill a void that often comes from within.
Oh yeah. Look, if happiness now and then I just didn't know it. Huh? But happiness, as per the equation, is events meet expectations. It's the moments in life where you look at your current life right now, regardless of what's going on, and you say, "I'm okay with this."
Yes.
It's the peace. It's the peace, calm, and contentment you feel when you're okay with life as it is. Okay. Today in my life, I'm single. Okay. And I'm hyper masculine in a way, and I would, I need the feminine energy in my life. It's something that's missing. Okay. I'm late on a book deadline, and I want to be on time. I'm struggling a little bit with my CEO job in my startup because it's taking a little longer than the pace I'm used to. But I'm okay with life. I wake up every morning and I go like, yeah, startups take a little bit of time to get to where they should be. Being single is better than being with the person that drains you. Okay.
Say that one again, Mo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the truth is very straightforward. The truth is it's not getting what you want from life that makes you happy. How often do we tell ourselves, I want that long, tall, blonde model to be my partner, and that will make me happy, and then that same person is the reason for your misery. Okay. And how many times do you tell yourself, I want a job that pays me more, and then I'll be happy, and then that job is what makes you stressed and burned out and kills you. Now the trick is, happiness is not getting what you want. Happiness is loving what you have. Okay. Loving what you have is a simple exercise of balancing your perception of life and your realistic expectation of how life is. Okay. I always joke and say, your partner might be loving and kind and, and gives you flowers, buys you flowers every few weeks or whatever, but then he doesn't groom his ears. So there are four hairs in it. And I say that with love and respect because that's actually a true story.
Yeah.
Okay. And a friend of mine comes to me and says that, if he doesn't groom for me, does he know what I'm doing for him? If he doesn't groom for me, that means he doesn't love me. I'm like, have you ever told him that? Like, is it even possible that he just forgets, or he doesn't know, or he doesn't have a shaver, or does it really, or can you actually look at all of him and say, and even if he doesn't groom, the flowers are wonderful? Okay. And can you see the truth of our life? Tell yourself, rain can make you unhappy, or snow in where you live. I have to say, if I lived where you live, Akeem, make me very unhappy. But there are other places in the world where it's raining bombs. Yeah. Okay. I mean, in reality, there's always a chance for you to look down and see that there are so many people less fortunate than you are.
Well, I could talk to you all day, every day, man. But I want to get into these last 5 questions because I know you have a lot.
You should.
I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you, man. These last 5 questions are a lot more. Well, they're a lot calmer. We'll say they're a lot calmer. Question number 1.
Yeah.
If you could take 3 things and you were going to be on a deserted island for a week, Mo, what are 3 things that you would take with you for a week?
For a week, I would take my tablet and keyboard to keep writing. I would take my meditation device. Oh my God, man, I love my Muse. This is not an advertisement, I swear. But I think most people don't understand why I do. But I'm freaking engineer who wants to meditate. So the charts and the feedback, is like, to me, is like I can measure my meditation. So I would probably take that and a way to charge it if I can, and then I would take. That's it, really. I mean, if there is food on the island, that is it. I mean, and I'll be so grateful to spend a week meditating and writing. That's like, when can we start?
In silence.
Exactly. Can we do this tomorrow?
Question two more. Obviously you had a lot of success in your life, and I really wanted to highlight away from that, because I think you're an incredible person with so much depth to you. But what are three things that you learned from your time you spent time with Microsoft, but what are some time that you had with Google as well too? Because even in the midst of the chaos and a lot of things going on, it still took a certain level of things to get there. What are some things that position taught you?
It's all about people. It really is all about people. If there is any reason, let me state it this way. There has always been only three reasons for my success. One is I always wanted to do the right thing. Okay. I always did things that I love. Okay. And I never, ever in my life burnt a bridge, ever. Okay. Now, let me just go through those very quickly. It is stupid to do a job that you don't like. Why? Because if you like your job, you're by definition going to do it better. Even if it pays you less, you're going to do it better, and that will make you grow. Okay? You're going to do it better, and that will make you even better at it. Okay? You're going to do it better, and then eventually that will mean that you'll be poached by another place that will want someone with your talent. Okay, work is not to ever be forced. And I know this sounds really stupid because most people will say, oh, you have the luxury to say that. No, I didn't always have the luxury to say that. Work gives you, we live in a world of abundance. So if you don't feel that your job is satisfying you in terms of feeling a sense of purpose, a sense of fitting in, a sense of respect, and so on and so forth, make it your point to move. You don't have to move tomorrow. You can move over the next 18 months, but make it your point to move to a place where you like. Okay. And next time you interview, don't interview for a couple of dollars more, interview for a couple of points of happiness more. Okay. It's something that you wake up in the morning and feel that you want to do. This is the first secret. I promise you, I never spent in my life more than 6 months in a job that I didn't like. Okay. Wow. And jobs change over time. And when they change, I would walk to my manager and I would say, hey, I think it's time for me to do something else. If I'm professional enough to find you, someone to replace me, would you please be professional enough to be patient with me until I find something else? Wow. Okay? And those kinds of conversations you may not have with every manager, but you may want to have with yourself. That's number one. Number two is, if you don't have, I wrote a chapter about that in Unstressable, a book that I'm working on right now. If you don't find purpose in your job, okay, find purpose elsewhere, but don't ever work in an evil job. I think this is very simple to understand. Not every job changes the world, even though, by the way, most jobs, if you are in a place that has the intent of serving clients and bringing good to the world, even if you're the accountant, you're not designing the product and you're not doing this and you're not doing that, just by doing your job well, you're enabling an organism of adding value to the world. Okay. But if your company is doing evil to the world, leave. Okay. And I'm not going to help you define what evil is, because I think you know. Yeah. Right. So if the place you work in has harmed a single being, it's not the right place to work. Okay. Give yourself 18 months, find another place. But if your company is not really making a massive difference to the world, that's still work. It's great. Find your purpose elsewhere, because as humans, if we don't, if we're not motivated by purpose, life becomes easy but empty. Okay, and so
Wow.
find your
Yes.
purpose somewhere. That's number two. And number three is it's so simple, huh? It's all about people. Okay, it really is all about people. I think the one thing that really made a massive, careers are not linear, you know that, huh? Careers in any way are not linear. So I got many years of my life where I was growing, slowly, and then there were years where I was zooming like a rocket. Okay, those were the years when the friends I had made 14, 15 years ago, who were my clients, who were my peers at work, who were this and that, started to become CEOs and prime ministers. Okay, and they had known me for years and years and years as an honorable, honest, good for his word, trustworthy person. Okay, and then suddenly that currency that I've put in my saving account all through my life started to pay back for me. People would call me and openly say, Mo, I have a technical challenge. Can your product or can your service help me overcome it? Okay, and I, with my same honesty, would either say an absolute yes because I know it can, or I would say no, you should probably talk to this other company. They're better at it than me. Okay, and because the number of bridges I kept open through my life were accelerating every day, there was a moment in my career where there was so much abundance of opportunity that it became so easy to succeed. Okay, and in reality, honestly, Hakeem, it's all about people. It's all about, and my next book is a very strange approach to humanity. It starts from artificial intelligence and ends in humanity. But this is it, really, huh? The only thing that matters is that most humans you've ever dealt with are wonderful beings. Yeah, sometimes their ego takes the best of them, but inside, when we see a school shooting, one person has done something horrible, but 400 million people detest it. People are good at heart. Okay, and if you can see that in every person and just deal with them at that, not at their worst, but at their best. If you can deal with everyone with the best of who they are, over the years, you'll just have an army of supporters that just want you to succeed.
Wow. Question number 3, Mo. I know you're big on coffee, right? I know. Good coffee. Good coffee. Let's clarify that. Good coffee. If you could sit down, Mo, and have coffee with five people, past or present, 2 hours, uninterrupted, all conversation and good quality coffee, who would those 5 people be, Mo?
Come on. I have to say Ali. If I can have him for 2 more hours, I'd really appreciate that. I'd love to spend a couple of hours with Jesus, if that's possible. And Prophet Muhammad. Can we count those as one?
Yes.
And Buddha.
Yes.
Okay, and Buddha.
Yes.
I mean, those 3 were quite something for me. And by the way, I'm not religious in the typical sense of things, but I definitely believe these were teachers that taught us amazing things. If you cut some of the crap that humans brought to religion afterwards.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, don't judge me on that. But I love those people. I definitely want to spend time with Einstein, because I think that was brilliant, the way he described space-time. And in all honesty, I definitely believe that the one riddle, if you want, in humanity, if we solve time, we solve everything. It's, to me, it really is the Easter egg in the game. If we figure time out, we figure out everything. So how many are those? I would. Can I keep going?
Yes. We'll put Jesus, Buddha,
Muhammad and Buddha and one.
Muhammad. Yeah, we'll put them in one. So we'll give you. Let's go 2 more. Let's go 2 more.
2 more. I would love to meet with. Can we also clump them as one?
Yes.
Mary, Mother Teresa, you know, all of those incredible feminine beings
Yes.
that brought to our hyper masculine life, you know, a sense of what it is like to be human. Okay, so and the list can go on for hours. It includes Alanis Morissette when she was angry and brought her Jagged Little Pill album out. It includes, you know, um, uh, every vulnerable woman that actually could go out there in the world and say, hey, by the way, you're seeing this wrong. Okay, I believe those completely changed our world, and I think if we could more and more find those in our sisters and in our you know, lovers and in our mothers, and you know, just encourage a world where we can meet the feminine, not you know, not any specific example of it. I think this would be an amazing couple of hours. You remember last year was my year of silence and space. This year is my year of flow. And flow is an incredible feminine quality that we hyper engineered left brainers sadly are unable to tap into fully. So I'd spend 20 hours on that if we can, and then I'd take you out for a coffee, man. I mean, it's been what is this? Yeah, we have to go out for a couple of hours. Let's go for a long coffee.
Yes.
Allow me to pick the place if you don't mind, because coffee matters. Okay, so
I look forward to that day. Well, I look forward to it. Question 4: apart from meditation, what is one thing that you have to do for yourself every single day?
I do the opposite of meditation. I mean, it's not the opposite, but it's the opposite of traditional meditation. I don't do it every day. I do it 3 times a week, 25 minutes each. It's a practice that I call Meet Becky. And Becky, for those who follow my work, I call my brain Becky. So I treat my brain as a third party. And that concept separates me from my thoughts. Okay, so when my brain says something, I respond by asking Becky for explanations. I ask Becky if it's true, and so on and so forth, right? And I have a regular type of meditation, 25 minutes a day, 3 times a week, where I sit with Becky, but go the opposite way of meditation. I don't try to calm my brain down. I try to let my brain go. Okay, and I do that in a very specific way. There are only 2 rules. Every thought is acknowledged and then dismissed. Not dismissed, moved on from. Okay, and no thought is repeated twice. So my brain would start normally by saying, "Oh, don't forget to call Aya today," and I would go like, "Okay, we'll call Aya today. What else? That coffee yesterday, oh, that was amazing. All right. Oh, you liked the coffee. What else?" And so the idea is you acknowledge the thought and then you ask for another one. And then, visibly you will see, and I allow myself, by the way, a paper and a pen. So if any thought is important, I write it down, or if any thought is ridiculous, I write it down. And then you would recognize a few patterns. First of all, the minute you start listening, your brain slows down. Okay, so there is no more a rush of thinking. Suddenly your brain goes like, "Oh my God, he's listening. I might as well say something, smart." Okay, so it slows down. I swear, it slows down. It starts to actually really think about what it's going to say. And then by dismissing thoughts, very quickly you get to a corner when you say "what else," and your brain goes like, "Remember to call Aya," and and I go like, "Yeah, you said that before, right?" And then it's shut up for a second and then goes like, "That's it, nothing more to say." And normally I get to that moment around 11 to 13 minutes in. Total silence, like your brain like, "Okay, thank you for listening to me," and then I have nothing else to say. Okay. Wow. I then I finish the 25 minutes, and then in that pure heavenly joy of silence, and then I sit down and look at my notes, and some of the crap that our brains say it's so easy then to go like, so you thought that they were trying to depopulate the planet by introducing COVID-19. Don't be silly. You scratch,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you scratch out that thought, and then you move on, and it doesn't come again because you've addressed it properly with your brain.
Well, with the career that you've had, where you are today, everything you had to overcome, work through, heal from, grow through. If there was one word to describe you, what would that one word be? And then give me a little context behind that word.
A seeker.
Mm.
I am a seeker. I mean, some people think because I say things that sound logical that I have figured things out. I am totally lost. And I think no. So there are a few things that I figured out, and at least they work for me. Okay, but I say that, and I know again it might turn off some people who don't like religion or whatever. But at a very young age, age 16 specifically, I was born in a very conformative country. So Islamic countries, Islam is part of everything that you do. Okay, it's even part of the language, and we say inshallah because it's like it's part of the language. If God willing, I'm going to meet you tomorrow is part of the language. And so I realized that if I was going to live in the Middle East, I would have to live a very conformative life. And so I debated religion at a very young age. And I did at age 16 something that I call the mathematics of the divine. Okay, I acknowledged myself agnostic for a few months, and I said if I was going to follow this for my whole life, I might as well just verify if there is something out there. Okay, so with my brain, which is highly mathematical, I said let's do the math of this. Okay, and I actually shared that in Solve for Happy. It was the last chapter of the book. I funny enough called "Who Made Who?" Did we make up the concept of the divine, or did the divine make us? And I maybe now is not the right time, but basically arrived mathematically that the mathematical opportunity or probability, the mathematical probability of us being the result of randomness, what they call the Big Bang and evolution and natural selection, is nil. It's close to zero. Okay, it's not zero, but it approaches zero, as we say in mathematics. Okay, which is very, very close to zero, because the complexity of the universe that we live in, especially if you take into your equations the element of time, which most scientists try to ignore. Okay, most scientists will tell you, yeah, randomness can actually create this universe if you give it enough time. Okay. No, we didn't have enough time. We had 13.7 billion years. So you need to factor that into the equation, and then suddenly you realize it's impossible to have a storm go through a junkyard and then out the other end comes an iPhone. It's impossible. Okay. And so with that in mind, I started to seek, but I started to seek what I define as not just the physical sciences, which is physics and chemistry and so on and so forth, but the non-physical, the metaphysical sciences that assume that there is something out there, not just our physical universe, not our physical form. There is something that designed all of this. Okay, and this journey, sadly, at a point in my life, ended with the realization that I will never figure it out. Okay. But it's probably not about figuring out. It's about trying to figure out. Okay, it's trying to find out, and then the spectrum becomes endless, Akeem. The spectrum of, you really need to understand physics because you want to understand how quantum physics works. If you want to understand anything about this universe at all, but you also want to understand yourself from the inside, because if you want to find the divine, believe it or not, the divine is a non-physical property. Okay, it's a non-physical entity. You need to understand your feminine side because your masculine brain is unable to perceive anything that's not physical. It's linear, it is analytical, it is facts-driven, and so on. It's words-driven, and so on and so forth. And so you have to start working on yourself excessively to try and eliminate all of the stupidity that has been ingrained into you by dogma, if you want. And then eventually you have to start to connect to others, because the true source of wisdom is everyone else, the wise and the unwise. Okay, and if you can actually sit, like Ali used to teach me, if he taught me anything that completely changed my life, it was that he never judged anything. He never judged anyone. Ali would sit with the craziest people and just completely accept what they said. In his heart, he would come out afterwards, and I ask him, and I say, Ali, how can you accept this? And he said, I didn't really, Papa, but I didn't completely dismiss it. Okay? And once you start to see that, your entire journey becomes a journey of seeking. Okay? It becomes the most fabulous video game ever, with endless possibilities and a complete conviction that you're never going to finish the game. Okay? That you're just there to discover every corner of the game. Every corner you can reach.
Yeah.
And that's, if you ask me, that's the best way to live. So seeker, I think.
Mo, thank you so much for your time, man. It's good to see you. Since the last time we spoke, you look about 10 years younger, if you ask me. But that's if you ask me. You may not think so, but I think so. But Mo, where can people keep in contact with you apart from the podcast Slow Mo, which has been, man, I've listened to. I'm probably missing about the last 10. But I get a lot from it on so much. And I know you have a new book coming out in September, correct?
Correct, yes.
And I have the website pulled up to pre-order my copy. But tell me a little bit quickly about Scary Smart.
So Scary Smart, as I said, it appears to be a book about artificial intelligence, but it isn't really. I mean, it is the whistleblower on artificial intelligence, if you want. I talk about what I know from the inside of technology. But it really is a call to action, because in my belief, we're getting into a world where we are going to have to welcome a new sentient being that is digital. It is not biological, but it is a being nonetheless that is capable of consciousness, capable of emotions, capable of an ethical code. And that if we don't welcome that being as good parents by setting up our own ethical code correctly, we're in deep, deep trouble. Okay, and I think that's a very brief summary for a very complex conversation, but it is actually called Scary Smart because it's very scary. So most people who read early copies will text me at chapter 5 and say, "Are you trying to make me commit suicide? Because this is very scary." And I'm like, just hold on into chapter 6. And the idea is, as I say in the very last sentence of the book, isn't it ironic that the essence of what makes us human, happiness, compassion, and love, is what we now need to save our world in the post-human stage, in this post-human world that we're going to go into. So Scary Smart is out September 30th. I'm actually running a promo on it, so people who can pre-order it and send me a copy of the pre-order confirmation to win@mogawdat.com. I have 50 limited edition copies that I will sign and send to 50 winners around the world pre-release. So that's Scary Smart. People can also get in touch, and please do get in touch on social media. My most active platforms are Instagram, Mo_Gawdat, or LinkedIn, Mo Gawdat. And I answer every message that I get, believe it or not.
I believe it.
May take some time. Yeah, it may take some time. I apologize. I get literally hundreds, but a day. But I will eventually get to every one of them, or I do eventually get to every one of them, and I answer in a quick voice memo if I can, unless I need to type. But yes, get in touch. It would be my honor and my pleasure.
Mo, thank you so much, man. I have to say this, man. I think Ali is looking down every day, and he's extremely proud of you, because a lot of things is hard to rebound from, but I think the loss of him has sent you down a purpose that I think maybe God was trying to show you. And I know he's up. I know he's up there and he's saying, yes, yes, Dad, you're doing amazing.
I believe that, and I thank you for saying that. I will spank him nonetheless when I see him for leaving early. But I miss him, and I'm grateful for what he taught me. So yes, and I love you, man, and it's always a pleasure. And I hope we meet again for that coffee soon.
Oh, it's always love, Mo. I appreciate you. We'll always be in touch.
Absolutely.